And this game is based on the video game with the same name, which is a online battle royale that's free to play, and they do a really great job of it because nothing in this game is pay to win. And if you are already amazing at this game, you can find me on my PlayStation, we can squad up, and you can carry me all the way to Pred. I'm actually a huge fan of this game, and it's pretty much the only video game that I ever play these days. But if you're not familiar with it at all, the things that make it special is that there are a bunch of different characters, all with different tactical abilities, passive abilities, and ultimate abilities. And another thing that makes Apex Legends really unique is that the time to live in this game is quite a bit longer than other battle royales. And what that means is that you have your health and you have your armor, and you also have the ability to be brought back up if you're knocked to the ground, and you also have the ability to be resurrected completely and respawned if you are completely killed. What this means is that you can have a lot longer battles, which is the most exciting part of battle royales, because when you have a longer fight, that fight can kind of tell a story, and it's not just someone shoots you and you're dead. Instead, people are pushing and pulling back and forth, using their abilities to their advantage, avoiding bad situations with their opponents, and then also working as a team, sharing loot, picking people back up, and resurrecting them when needed, which really makes just an amazing experience. As long as you're not getting charge rifled by a third party 10 miles away. At its core, this is a shooter game, so the gunplay is obviously really important, but the movement is really what sets this apart because you can do certain things to gain momentum and then carry that momentum into different slides or jumps or different actions or abilities that the different legends have in order to augment that gunplay to make yourself harder to shoot, get an advantage on your opponent in terms of positioning, or even try to get yourself out of some very sticky situations. And I did touch on this one already, but I think the abilities are also another thing that sets Apex Legends apart. Not only is it a cool thing that each of the characters have their own set of abilities, but they're all very different from each other. And depending on the team that you put together, you can have a lot of different opportunities and combos in the way that they work together. And there are no limitations to the characters that you play, other than you can't have two of the same characters in a single team. So this means that you can mix and match any characters that you want, and if you have a favorite character, you can always play them so long as someone else doesn't pick them first. And one thing that I really love about the publishers of this game is that they're doing a great job of taking all those things that makes Apex special and then bringing it into the board game in a way that makes sense in a board game setting. And each of the characters' abilities are going to transfer over as well. So Bangalore is going to have her airstrikes and her smoke screens. Wraith is going to have her portals and jumping into the void. Gibraltar is going to have access to his more targeted airstrike as well as his protective bubble. And then Bloodhound is going to have his tactical ability where he can scan enemies, but this does work a little bit different because this is a board game, so you'll be able to already see where all the enemies are. But you're basically going to be tagging anyone that you scan with a crow, which is going to make them easier to hit when it comes to resolving your accuracy. And this board game is going to be quite the spectacle with all the different miniatures as well as the 3D terrain, because cover in this game is also super important, and it does play in as a factor when it comes to resolving accuracy in this game. And something that I think is really cool here is that they did kind of incorporate that longer time to live that I was talking about earlier, because in order to kill an enemy team, you actually have to kill all the members of that team in a single turn, which means that if you've only killed one of them, that player is going to be back on their feet in the following turn, which can be interpreted as their teammate reviving them. I don't think they'll be at 100% because you do have your shields to heal and you do have your health to heal, and there are health packs and shield cells that you'll have in this game. So when you come back up, you're probably going to be a little bit in a critical state, making you easier to knock in the next round. But I think that just does a great job of capturing how the game actually feels, because within a single fight, many of your team members could go down and get revived back up. And this really is a game about putting pressure on those other teams. And just like in the video game, in the board game, you will be able to move around the map, open up different loot boxes, and gather different weapons and gear to upgrade your arsenal. And whenever you open one of these loot boxes, you're going to be drawing a card from the loot deck, and that card's going to tell you what exactly you found in that box. And whenever you open a loot box, you'll be able to draw a card from the loot deck, and that's going to have a bunch of different items on it telling you what you found in that box, and then you'll be able to pick and choose what exactly you want to add to your inventory. And if you've played any battle royales, you're probably familiar with the concept known as the storm or the zone, but if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's essentially an area of the map that gradually gets smaller as the game goes on, forcing players to get closer and closer together, because if you are ever outside of that zone and in the storm, then you will be constantly taking damage for the duration that you are out there. And this board game does take inspiration from that as well, and it works in the exact same way. So as you're playing rounds, the zone is going to be creeping in more and more, making certain areas of the board issue you damage if you're still in that area when the zone comes in. And there's going to be a few different trackers to monitor the state of the game, but there is one track in particular that's super, super important because, like I said, at the core of this game, it is all about the gunplay. And the main track that I'm talking about is your accuracy track. And the way that this track works is that you have a bunch of +5s on the left side of the board, you have a 0 somewhere in the middle, and then the numbers get increasingly more negative the further you go down that board. This is going to come into play anytime that you fire your weapon because each weapon is going to have its own set of stats, which can also be augmented by different attachments. But the different stats are going to be its mag size, which is going to dictate how many cards you get to draw. There's going to be the damage, which dictates the damage it does. Then there's also going to be its accuracy, which is going to represent how easy it is to hit your enemy. And just as an example of how the accuracy and the guns work in this game, the accuracy of the alternator is a 40, but then its mag size is a 3, which means that you'll get to draw 3 cards, and the cards will have different numbers on them. And then you'll be issuing those out on the accuracy track, starting from the 0 and then moving to the right with each of the cards that you play. You're going to be taking the number from your card and then adding it to whatever number is on that accuracy track. And if that number is higher than the 40 in this case, then that will issue a hit and do the amount of damage as dictated on that weapon card. And you might have noticed that some of these cards also have some additional icons. There is the headshot icon, which means that if you do land a hit with that, you're going to be dealing additional damage. There's also an icon with a half target on it, and if you get 2 of those out there to complete a full target, then that's going to issue you a bonus hit. Then there's also cards that could have an up arrow on them, a down arrow on them, or a half cover. And if you play any of those, it means it's an automatic miss if the enemy is above you, below you, or peeking behind cover. But like I said, the weapons you have, the gear you have, or your abilities can all manipulate the way that all of this plays out, and you're going to want to use that to your advantage to try and be the last team standing. And if you are, you win the game. And if you are interested in this one as much as I am, you can go ahead and check out the link to the campaign in the description below. I'm already following it. You can follow it too, and let's go and unlock those stretch goals because I'll definitely be backing this one, and I will be a little sad if I don't get Mad Maggie.
Syndicate's gonna regret letting Mad Maggie off her